Are wide receivers or running backs more valuable in fantasy football? I feel like the Will Smith meme with this yearly fantasy format article. I keep expecting that the market will be flooded with articles about how the idea of zero RB versus robust RB is idiotic, because the former is only viable if you're allowed to start 4 or more wide receivers, and the latter is default if you can only start a max of 3. Advertisement to determine the best draft strategy. First, we have to cover what Flex 9 and Flex 10 mean. You know what Flex means: WR, RB, or TE in most cases.
Tired of constantly refilling your pet's water bowl? This filtered fountain keeps water circulating and offers a generous capacity, giving cats and small dogs convenient access to flowing water. Want to get the best verified deal and see full details? Visit grabdeal.us/5 right now.
The 9 or 10 is the number of starters in your lineup, and that changes mostly because you have to start either 2 WRs in 9 or 3 in 10, and then perhaps another in the flex. I get asked questions about bigger lineups or more flex spots. So to make it simple, it's just the maximum number of WRs you could possibly start. If it's 4 or more, you need to come out of the draft with a WR room that can contend for the best in your league. That's your top objective. If it's no more than 3, including the flex, then your goal is snore to have the best RB room. Why am I bored with having the best running back room? It's a function of purely the power of expending draft capital and largely where you happen to draft. Plus, the winner is basically the team that survives the injury gauntlet the best. Running backs you hit on outside of the top 100 picks are typically those who benefited from unexpected and not projectable, expanded playing time. Wide receivers you hit on in that range are typically starters who are guaranteed to get snaps, but who we bet will be more efficient with them than the market thinks. My rankings ignore overall order and instead focus on positional ranks. Even within the same Flex 9 or Flex 10 formats, drafts can vary wildly, so it's always imperative to know how deep your league has drafted at each position before every pick. But Flex 9 and Flex 10 amplify these differences dramatically, as they are totally different games. Yet, if you mention Flex 9 and Flex 10, you'll get blank stares. I blame best ball leagues, which the expert community loves, as do many passionate fantasy football-obsessed managers. But the number of starters is a minor consideration in best ball, so it's all about ad in a vacuum. And since there are no in-season moves, running back becomes as important as in Flex 9, since everyone is padding the position to cover for potential injuries. Therefore, everyone gets in the habit of citing overall ad with its running back bias and disdain for WR-heavy roster constructions for months leading into the drafts we all actually care about. Advertisement, you know the experts are through the looking glass when they quote their market shares of players and portfolio diversification. Most of us are drafting 1 or 2 big leagues, not building fantasy football index funds. The biggest games in fantasy scoring have always been tilted to WRs. The math on this has always worked perfectly until last year. Wide receiver scoring in 2025 was down 8% compared to in 2024 and down 6.2% compared to the average of the prior 10 years, 2015-24, according to True Media PPR scoring. I'm assuming this is an outlier due to quarterback play being way below the expected level and teams protecting against the pass, thus having more inviting running fronts. It's possible that the game has fundamentally changed like in the NBA, via three-pointers. But I always assume big changes that appear to be a new reality are random unless, or until proven otherwise. Even if it's true that WR scoring is declining, you still need the stronger WR room in Flex 10 because you still have to play at least 3. And the math of real-life NFL rosters and usage will always make it easier to get a productive 4th WR, at least 64 real-life starters in the pool, than a productive 3rd RB, only 32 real-life starters. But the decline of WR scoring had a dramatic impact on scoring last season. In 2024, wide receivers held a 60% share of plus 20-point games, but that declined to 54% in 2025. Additionally, running backs actually had more plus 25 and plus 30-point games than wide receivers in 2025, but running back scoring wasn't up. It was just more concentrated to the featured backs. Looking at 2025 versus 2024, overall PPR RB scoring was virtually identical, up just 0.4%, only 52 more fantasy points. And it was up even less, 48 points, over the prior 10-year average. The bottom line, a ton of fantasy points just disappeared. Advertisement. But even if you think wide receiver scoring will stay down due to structural differences in the game, you still need to invest more in wideouts in WR-heavier formats than you would in other formats. And I will bet that it again will be true that the more WRs your format allows, the more chances you have for explosive, week-winning performers. Every week, there are more viable scorers at wide receiver. Every NFL team has 2 starting WRs who could get 10 targets each, but only 1 RB who can get 20 touches. The prevalence of multiple TEs and 3 WR formations impacts this math, but TE targets were up only 5% in 2025 compared to 2024. And, in 2025, QBs threw only 14 more passes total to RBs than the prior year, according to True Media. The goal of 0 RB in Flex 10 formats is to get 4 top 25 WRs. This year, the cutoff point for that in NFFC drafts, just the past week, is pick no. That means you have to spend your first 4 picks on WRs. But since there is more variance in WR rankings, you can add another WR, or 2, who you think has a decent chance to finish in the top 25 at a much cheaper cost. In other words, you don't stop drafting WRs once you get 4 or even 5. Deebo Samuel, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Quentin Johnston are a few of the WRs in my rankings who I believe can end up in that top 25 bucket in PPR formats, but who are generally drafted much later. When your league exhausts itself at RB, you can then pick your Tier 3 running backs who have nearly a coin flip chance to finish top 24 at the position. I'm talking Ramondre Stevenson, Jalen Warren, J.K. Dobbins, Kenneth Gainwell, Jackery Krosky-Merritt, Jadarian Price, and Chris Rodriguez. Your bet would be that half these RBs pop, so you want to draft 3 of them at ADP and hope for a little luck with 2 of them hitting. Then, one of your other 2 or 3 running backs is at least playable, and you challenge yourself to stream weekly starters on the waiver wire. In both Flex 9 and Flex 10 formats, having a top tight end can dramatically increase your odds of winning your league because, typically, the difference between a top 3 TE and a TE in the 12-15 range is massive. This year, you have to pay a second-round pick to get Brock Bowers or Trey McBride. I agree with consensus that they are the top 2 tight ends, though it could easily be McBride and then Bowers. I would not draft Colston Loveland number 3 because he didn't come close to 100 targets, and even his December pace was just 106. I need a WR-like target share of 25%, about 130 expected targets, to draft one proactively in this type of construction. I see Kyle Pitts as more likely to hit that number than Loveland, because Loveland could be 3rd in the pecking order for Chicago and Pitts should be no worse than 2nd for Atlanta. The serious injuries to George Kittle and Tucker Kraft last year make them risky picks at their current ADPs. Advertisement: if your league starts no more than 3 WRs, you have to pound the RBQ into oblivion. If your league allows you to start 4 or more WRs, you have to strongly consider going 0 RB in your draft. No matter your format, if you can get one of the top 2 TEs without overpaying or pits, you should do that. If something absurd happens in your draft, of course be prepared to audible. But to give up having the best WR room in Flex 10 or the best RB room in Flex 9 requires an earthquake. You have to be convinced that your early RB pick in Flex 10 is a steal, or your early WR pick in Flex 9 is in a completely different class than every available running back. Otherwise, don't fight your format and execute the plan.